So why do artists make art? Or why do people make anything at all? I want to explore that in this particular video. My name is Matt Coons, and I appreciate your joining me here today. And I want to begin by telling you a story. A lot of lessons learned, and I learn a lot of lessons because I'm imperfect. I know that, and I learn things from the most unusual sources. So I was participating in an art festival a couple months ago. It was only my second one. I'm still relatively new at this, didn't know what I was doing, but I made sure I had a lot of pieces, put it out there, and just want to see what happens when you have them. And people would walk by, and a lot of people looked at my paintings and sold a few, which was great. But I had one particular experience that really hit home with me. I was standing there, and a 10-year-old girl walked by, and she saw one of my paintings. Now, this particular painting was a practice painting for me. It wasn't something that I put a ton of effort in, but I really wanted to try to create something that was decent on a scratch piece of canvas. I was new into acrylics. I was practicing with that. And I put together some things and threw the paint on there, and it looked good. I was pretty happy with it, but at the end of the day, I glued that onto MDF board and prepared it for sale so it could be hung immediately. And I had it on display. Well, this 10-year-old girl walked by and she saw it, and she came up to it, and then she left, and then she came back and she asked me, how much for this painting? And I said, well, it's $30. And that was the price of it. It wasn't a whole lot. And for a 10-year-old girl, that would be a lot. And I knew that, and I can tell she was impacted by it in a way that was surprising to me, but she was. And so she went away saying she was going to try to get the remainder of the money for it. She had $15. I said, okay. Well, she left. And she came back and she said, I wasn't able to get the other $15, so I'm not able to get the painting. But I could tell that she was impacted by it, and I tried to do a favor, and I thought, well, tell you what, I would be happy to sell it to you for $15 because I could see that you appreciate it. And she took a step back and she says, no, I don't want to devalue it like that. It's worth too much. And it kind of hit me that she said that from a 10-year-old girl. And here she was having a conversation with this art piece, and that included everything about it, also its price. And I didn't really get that or grasp that at the time. I've heard about these things, but for her, as much as it was, and I thought I was doing her a favor with this, she wasn't going to do that to it. She respected it too much. It spoke to her. And it was a very unusual experience to me to see that and to witness that. So as I contributed my 3 pieces to the Coming Arts Center, and all these other artists contributed their paintings as well, it's got me thinking, why do people make art? And I think I have an answer to this. People might make a piece of art because they're playing, basically. They might be bored and want to do something, and so they just get out some materials on a piece of paper and they just see what they can do strictly from their imagination. And they don't know where it's going to come up, or what's going to happen as they go, but they're just going to play and do it, and when it's done, they'll release it into the world and see what happens. There are others that might be experiencing a moment in life. Maybe they take a photograph of that moment and it just captures them, and they decide to immortalize that through a painting, for example, and contribute more time, energy, and effort and skill into that particular piece of work so that it can live, if you will, and they put it out there. There are others that are trying to make a statement, politically or whatever, and basically say, this is what I believe. And so they'll put together a bunch of shapes and colors that contribute to that support of their belief. And in a way, their art is speaking for them. There are others that want to create political things as well that might be disparaging for people. We don't have any of those at the Coming Arts Center, of course, but you have memes and things like that in the political world where they will try to gain power through destruction or devious ways, through the creation of art. And that is a means that people do. It's a choice that artists have. There are people that create art just because they want to advance in their skills. They want to create art that might actually speak better or louder just because of the way they're put together. And those people enter juried art shows for competition and want to see how their art might relate to their peers, for example. But it's interesting, the writer Stephen King in his book on writing mentioned that, writing is like telepathy. An artist or a writer will write something and they'll put it out there on a paper, and it will hang out there, and it might not be read for 100 years later, but you know what? That artist, that author may be dead for all these years, but someone else will pick it up and read those ideas, and it will have been transposed into his mind to impact him in some way. And that's what art can do as well. Art can live, art can speak, art can share. Whatever the author or the artist was experiencing at that time, they put that into the painting. But when that artist releases that painting or releases that book or whatever else, it lives. It has a mind of its own. It does something. It actually speaks. We don't always hear it, but it does. And so you walk into a museum, for example, and you can go around and see a painting, and you might say, oh, that painting, that doesn't speak to me, right? And then you walk away and go somewhere else. Well, someone following you might look at that and says, wow, this thing really speaks to me. And it's amazing how a painting might do that. It's like a relationship with the people that it comes in contact with. It does speak, whether you hear it or not, but it is speaking on its own and it's living on its own. And so an artist who actually creates something, puts something out into the world that does take on a life of its own. And those people that it comes in contact with, it might impact them for good or for not, depending on how it speaks. And that all depends on the intent of the author or the artist. And as that artist is trying to make something, they will put a lot of themselves into it, but at the end of the day, when they release it, it becomes separate. It becomes its own thing. And it will live when it goes either out into a museum or out on someone else's wall at home or whatever. And so as I learned from that 10-year-old girl, that art does have an impact. All of it, everything about it, from its colors to its shapes, to what it says, what it speaks, to what the author puts into it, to what its price and value is. Everything about it actually has some element of speaking to the individual that's looking at it. And I learned that from a 10-year-old girl. So if you get a chance, like and subscribe this video. I would hope that you as an artist will contribute something out there and make something that will live on its own. If you draw something, whatever, take a picture of it, put it out there, see what happens. I know you're afraid. You might be afraid of criticism, right? People will look at it and say, you can do better, or that doesn't speak to me, or, forget that. The reality is that anything you do, anything you make can live when you put it out there, and you can always get better. Just because you release something, that's not an extension of you. Yeah, you might have made that, and yeah, it is, but you know what? It's out there as it is. It does its own thing. It does live in its interactions with other people. That's how it works. But you as an artist can continue to make, can continue to grow, and every time you do that, every new piece also speaks, and that contributes to the world and our culture. So as artists, we can put things out there that actually have an impact on human beings, that people can look at and see, and we can look at these things and say, you know what, these things are speaking to us, and they're speaking good things. So as we put things out there, let's make things that contribute to the culture, because that will create our own army of things that will speak on its own, and they will do positive things in the world, and we need more of that today. So again, this is Matt Coons. I appreciate you being part of this video. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.